He ain't that guy. Arman Tsarukyan, listen, you're not that guy, pal. Okay? Let's just be clear. Arman Tsarukyan, and I'm going to be right on this, he ain't got shit on Charles Oliveira. I think Charles, and I'm getting back into the Charles Oliveira spirit, is going to go out there, and I think he's going to fucking destroy this motherfucker. So we're a week and a half away from Charles Oliveira versus Arman Tsarukyan, where Arman is going to attempt to break into that lightweight top 5 where these old-ass lightweights have been holding it down. Okay? Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje, they've held the line, they've freaking held down the fortress, and now it's Charles Oliveira's turn. But for whatever reason, I almost get this sense from the fans, and I'm guilty of this way of thinking too, that out of all the new age lightweights, Arman Tsarukyan is just of a different status. He's cut from a different cloth. He's not to be compared to Guram, to Fiziev, to Benoit Saint-Denis. I still think Benoit Saint-Denis hasn't necessarily been fraud checked, but the point that I'm making is he's not. Arman Tsarukyan is just another one of those guys. Now, I'm not saying he can't win this fight. I could see him knocking out Charles in a fluke way where we never see him get one-punch KOs outside of an old, chinny, diaper-wearing Beneil Dariush that had already been softened up by Charles Oliveira. I could maybe see him doing that, but I'm not going to pick it to happen, and I'm not going to pick him to submit Charles Oliveira. And, yeah, okay, he took Joaquim Silva 3 rounds and just barely fucking TKO'd him at the end. He didn't take a 3, but he TKO'd him in the 3rd. He's going to finish Charles? Man, stop. Stop. Arman Tsarukyan is overrated. He's not different from these other guys. Like, I just watched him fight. I watched like 5 of his fights back. I watched his fight with Damir Ismagulov. I watched his fight with Mateusz Gamrot. And although he's good, and that's undeniable, if there's anything that I've learned from the years I've been an MMA fan, watching Charles Oliveira's career especially, it's that he's on a different fucking level to these other guys. And I do not see anything special in Arman Tsarukyan's game that is going to pose a threat to Charles Oliveira. Yes, if this is a fight against Dustin Poirier, if it's a fight against the white belt Justin Gaethje, of course I'm picking Arman Tsarukyan in a heartbeat. I may even give him a better chance against Islam Makhachev, who's a little bit more defensive, who's going to allow Arman to have that kind of, that time period to ease his way into a fight. He's going to run out from the get-go. He's going to go out the gates, guns blazing, full steam ahead. He's going to get a hold of Charles, and he's going to take him down. And then he's going to get figured out really fucking quickly, okay? Charles Oliveira is going to twist this motherfucker into a pretzel. Yeah, son! Dude, I can't see this guy doing anything to Charles on the ground. Like, this is a one-off prediction because I'm usually a little bit more calculated with the way that I make these picks. I'm not fucking around with this one. I'm not fucking around. This guy is not taking Charles DuBronx down and manipulating him in any way, shape, or form. Now, yes, Kevin Lee was able to do that. And Kevin Lee was kind of successful only in one position, and that was the half guard position. That's the only place where Arman Tsarukyan wins this fight. Or I should at least say this is the only place where you should have any hope for him to win this fight. A good enough amount of hope to pick him. It's half guard. Arman's pretty good in half guard. Fair enough. There ain't no other place on the ground where he's going to have the advantage. I don't give a fuck if he fucking held down Joaquim Silva, man. Okay, yeah, what? Little pitter-pat smudge man Gamrot in their fight was sitting there pretty for 5. I know that was some years ago. I understand that. And Gamrot is a guy that's a really good scrambler. He cooks a mean scrambled eggs breakfast. I'll tell you that much about Gamrot. He may not have an ability to hurt a fly on the ground. He may not be subbing anyone. He may not have any pop, but he sure as hell knows how to scramble some eggs. He's got a good scramble on him. Gamrot took his back. Gamrot took Arman Tsarukyan's back and had him in trouble. Okay? You want to talk about Arman Tsarukyan taking Damir Ismagilov's back? Oh, you're saying he's only good in half guard. What did he do to Damir Ismagilov? He took his back. Yeah, and what? Grant Dawson took his back and did this to him. Okay? So you guys want to talk about, oh, look at this win. That's so impressive. There is not a single Arman Tsarukyan win that makes me think he's going to have success against Oliveira, because every guy he's beat, someone's done it better. You want to talk about beating Beneil Dariush? Okay, great. He landed one big fucking punch. You think I'm going to pick Arman Tsarukyan based on landing one big punch on this guy? Dude, he's sleeping guys early now. Yeah, one fight against the guy that was knocked the fuck out by Oliveira a couple of months before. Charles is the one that actually snapped his win streak and cut him out when he had momentum. And you want to talk about, oh, he's finishing everyone now. No, he's not. He's got one KO since Christos Giagos, who's a nobody. This isn't Islam Makhachev a couple of fights away from the title. Now he's starting to run through people. He runs through Bobby Green in one round. He runs through Dan Hooker in one round. And he's subbing them. And he's TKOing them on the ground. He had his chance to do that to Joaquim Silva, and it took him until the 3rd. He got rocked badly. He has openings on the feet. And he leaves his right hand down by his hip. And he's getting constantly rocked by these shots. He's not that particularly dangerous on the feet. He doesn't have a crazy amount of power in his hands. And people, dude, oh my goodness, because I could see the comments right now. I could see the comments. People are going to be pissed that I'm even speaking this way, but I'm keeping it honest. I'm keeping it real. Arman Tsarukyan is going to need to put Charles Oliveira's lights out in order to win this one. He's going to need to come over the top with something super fast, something super slick. He's got really good kicks. He's got a phenomenal kicking game. And I could maybe see Arman Tsarukyan letting one of those things go and maybe sneaking it over the guard of Charles, catching him and putting him away. It's possible. But you're not doing that to Joaquim Silva. I don't even care about the Beneil Dariush fight. Again, that was a non-fight. At least with Oliveira, we saw how the grappling played out. At least with Oliveira, he pressured Beneil Dariush up against the fence and checkmated him with the head kick, and it kind of wobbled him, but he was still kind of there and wasn't totally out of it, had a chance to regain composure, and Charles Oliveira shut that chance down again. And that's how I see him finishing Arman Tsarukyan. I think Arman's going to go out of the gates early on. I think he's going to take Charles down. I think he's going to get him on the ground in half guard, and I think Charles Oliveira might get held down for a little bit. He might even get held down for the entirety of the first round, may even take some damage. He's going to start to get tired. Dealing with Charles Oliveira on the ground is a whole other beast than dealing with these other fighters that Arman Tsarukyan's been fighting. When Kevin Lee, who's not as good as Arman Tsarukyan, took down Charles Oliveira, outside of one little moment where he had him down in half guard and had like a minute of success there, every single moment in that fight where he was on the ground, he was getting put in submission attempts. His arm was being wrenched. He was being put in twister positions. And I'll give you an example. As soon as Kevin Lee gets the takedown, look at what happens. He's going to shoot the single leg. He gets him down, throwing up a submission. Immediately putting him on the defensive. Pretzel mode. Going for an arm bar, reversing the position, and immediately going for another submission. And I understand that this is like a very risky style compared to the position over submission style or whatever. And the reason why I'm showing you guys this is because it's important to understand that there's only been one person that's been able to nullify this, and it's Makhachev. Since way back in the day I'm talking about. I understand that in 2016, 2017, 2015, there were guys that were definitely dealing with Charles on the ground. Not anymore. And although Arman Tsarukyan is better than Kevin Lee, 100% he is better than Kevin Lee, and I do think he will be able to at least nullify Charles Oliveira on the ground, I don't think he's beating him up. I don't think he's going to be much more dominant than Makhachev, who the only thing dominant about his grappling early on against Charles was the fact that he had top position. Okay, was the fact that he wasn't being put in all of these horrible spots. I think it's so unlikely that Arman Tsarukyan takes this guy down and beats him up or like shows him levels. I don't think there's a fucking good chance of that happening. I'm not picking it to happen. I just can't see Arman beating this dude up with like terrifying ground and pound by getting him into half guard and posturing up and eventually making anything happen. You give this guy any space, he's in his guard. You're in his guard, now he's throwing up submissions. At the very most, you're able to pin him on the mat. And Charles, if he really wants to, is good enough to get up to his feet. And that's the issue. It's like, Arman's not beating this dude up on the ground. And just taking him to the ground to begin with is going to be risky. We know how good Charles Oliveira's guillotine is. And Arman, 50% of his takedowns are single legs, it seems. And he's not going to be shooting a lot of single legs, fair enough, but what if he's rocked? What if he shoots a panic takedown? And it can end up like this, right? Kevin Lee, third round, getting tired, having to deal with the ferocious pace on the ground of Oliveira, having to deal with Oliveira getting in his face, throwing the kitchen sink at him. He's shooting a takedown, and Oliveira snatches up his neck while he's on the single leg. And he's done. Toast. So as far as my official prediction goes, because Arman does tend to leave himself a little bit open on the feet, I think Oliveira's going clobbering, okay? And I think this is exactly what it's going to look like. Here's the finishing sequence against Beneil Dariush. He's got Beneil rocked. Pretend this is Arman Tsarukyan. And Oliveira's just going to clobber him with a big old nasty old hook. Boom! Straight on the chin. Arman Tsarukyan's not eating that. I'm sorry, man. He's going right down to the mat. He's going right down to the mat or he's shooting a panic takedown. Look at Beneil. Look at Beneil, man. Arman Tsarukyan, he's going to have the same facial expression on his face. I'll tell you that much. He's going to have the same fucking expression. And although we didn't see it in the Makhachev fight with Oliveira, because Makhachev was the one to rock him first, when Oliveira has his opponents rocked, like we will see in a second, with the finish that he had over Beneil Dariush, whose first instinct was to shoot a takedown immediately, Arman has a similar instinct like a lot of grapplers. Classic example against Joaquim Silva when he gets rocked. His first instinct, shooting this panic takedown. This is the kind of moment where I could see Charles Oliveira, who has much better takedown defense, who has been working on that takedown defense for a long time now, who's a massive lightweight, either getting the guillotine or reversing Arman Tsarukyan, kind of pancaking him on his back and getting in mount and just chaining together submissions. As soon as you're hurt in front of Charles, you're as good as done, right? I mean, this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Beneil Dariush rocked against Oliveira. He's going for a single leg. Charles is hip to it. He pushes Beneil's head down. Beneil goes underneath his legs, looking for an escape, and he scrambles with him. And he's throwing ground and pound at the same time. Maybe I'm going to take the back. Perhaps we're going to go for a submission. Oh, Beneil's going to roll for a leg. I'll just go with the momentum. And now I'm on top of Beneil Dariush. Let me just throw some ground and pound shots and put him away. And that's the reason why I just can't pick Arman Tsarukyan. It's like, if he gets hurt, I don't think he has the option to just, let me just take him down, slow things down a little bit. No. Like, the benefit for him is if he hurts Charles, he's good enough to jump on him, and maybe he could TKO or rock Charles Oliveira from half guard or something like that. Who knows? Maybe he'll get the first submission of his entire career with a rocked Oliveira. But the point is, I think it's much more likely that Oliveira, with the power that he has, the reach advantage, the offensive juggernaut that he is with the phenomenal Muay Thai, the great boxing, I think it's more likely that Charles is going to be the one to sting Arman with a left hook, with a right hand, and put him away first. When Charles is not in front of someone with the defense of Islam Makhachev, and now he's going to have that rear hand glued to his chin, where that seemed to be a bit of an issue throughout his career, and it looks like he kind of closed that gap and was a little more tidy in his last fight against Beneil Dariush. When Charles Oliveira has that rear hand glued to his chin. And he's sitting here, okay? You get what I'm saying? I think he's going to pressure forward with that Muay Thai style. And I think that Arman Tsarukyan eventually is not going to have his way with Charles. It's going to find himself on the feet with him. And I think there are going to be too many moments in this fight where they're on the feet. And I just think Charles is better. I think he's exceptional on the feet. I think he's got phenomenal kicks, good leaping kicks, front kicks, great leg kicks. He has some of the strongest low kicks in the lightweight division. Doesn't get enough credit for them. And he's got really long arms. And he's got a nasty right hand. And he's got a nasty left hook. And I could see Arman Tsarukyan, after he lets go his rear hand, leaving himself completely open like he did against Joaquim Silva. And you don't want to get caught by the left hook of Charles Oliveira. You don't want to get caught coming in against the right hand of Charles Oliveira. And I just think Oliveira is going to bring a level of intensity that he's not used to. And this is not just a fucking diaper man Beneil Dariush sitting in the middle of the octagon waiting to get KO'd and then freezing up the moment Arman throws a combination. Like, what was Beneil's reaction to that? It looks like he forgot where he was even before any of those shots landed. Charles is blowing this dude out of the water. He's going to march across the octagon. He's going to get up to his feet when he needs to. He's going to be reversing positions. He's going to be giving Arman Tsarukyan hell on the ground. You want to talk about all the success of Arman Tsarukyan? What's he doing to Joaquim Silva in the first round? People talk, no, you don't understand. He's an absolute monster. He's good against these guys like Joaquim Silva, but wasn't looking like an absolute monster in the first round. Just was kind of tying him up against the fence and chilling in half guard and landing little pepper shots, and that was kind of it. Not really doing anything all that exceptional. It wasn't until the third round, when this guy that had taken the fight on short notice was starting to break, where Arman literally threw him on his fucking head, which like concussed him, where he actually got close to doing any serious damage on the ground. And again, we got to think of the other fights. Beneil Dariush, okay, you knocked out Beneil Dariush with one big punch. You think I'm going to change the way that I think about Arman Tsarukyan because he lands a flush shot that happens to get a reaction from someone? Yes, I'm sure his striking can improve, but I'm not going to just change the way I think of a fighter just because of a 5-second sequence in a fight. Like, it's very rare that we're going to see Arman Tsarukyan just finish people in 30 seconds. And we're going to see him just put people away with one punch every single time. Yeah, Charles was getting dropped against Dustin Poirier. Yeah, Charles was getting dropped by Justin Gaethje. He's had a lot of time off. And one of the things that I noticed in the Beneil Dariush fight, because Dariush did catch him with some big shots early on, one of the things I noticed in that fight was that Charles' chin was just fine. He wasn't doing a jitterbug. He wasn't getting rocked. I think the time off is a really good thing for Oliveira and his durability. I think he's been in a ton of wars. I think he's going to bite down on the mouthpiece. And I don't think Arman knocks him out with one big punch. And I don't think Arman's going to head kick KO him. He might. It's always possible. It's MMA. I don't really think anyone was predicting Arman Tsarukyan to just knock out Beneil with one shot in the first round. It could happen, and it fucking did. But it's much more likely that Charles, who has literally finished people like Gaethje and Dustin Poirier and people at the absolute highest level, Michael Chandler, now Beneil Dariush, the first guy to finish Beneil Dariush in the way that he finished him off of the 8-fight win streak. I know that other people have finished Beneil in the past, but like, Charles was the guy that put an end to his streak. Charles has literally only lost to Islam Makhachev throughout his past how many fights? Let me just make sure. Charles Oliveira, his last loss before Islam Makhachev was in 2017 against Paul Felder. Since then, he's had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 fights. He's literally won 12 out of his last 13 fights. And for some reason, Arman Tsarukyan, not Justin Gaethje, where Charles wasn't even shooting takedowns like that. Not even Dustin Poirier, where Charles, again, barely shot any takedowns against Dustin up until the second round. And the third, he didn't even go for one. He just took his back. Those guys are not putting him away. No, not Michael Chandler. Arman Tsarukyan is going to put him away. And I know we were saying the same thing about Islam Makhachev. Islam Makhachev has the best defensive statistics, or had the best defensive striking statistics in all of MMA going into the Charles fight, and it showed. Charles Oliveira, for the first time in his entire career, was not able to whiff an opponent. Gaethje, no issue. Dustin, no issue. All these other guys, no issue. Islam Makhachev, you can hardly whiff him. I'm not seeing the same kind of defense from Arman Tsarukyan. I'm just not. Sure, Joaquim Silva's not landing a lot because he's fucking Joaquim Silva. He's hardly throwing anything. Guy took the fight on short notice, showing up for a freaking paycheck. When you got Mateusz Gamrot in there looking like Marty Lewis. Mateusz Gamrot was out here looking like Marty Lou. Literally, Mateusz Gamrot was outboxing him. And Mateusz has a nice right hand. He's got a nice crafty straight. Absolutely. I don't think it's a good look that Arman Tsarukyan goes the distance with Mateusz Gamrot. I kind of need to see a finish. I kind of need to see a finish against the guy that has no ability to finish his opponents either. That gets dropped in every single fight. That did get dropped by Arman. And I think that Arman won the fight. I think it's impressive that he's only technically lost to one guy, and that's Islam Makhachev. I think it is impressive. I'm not seeing the dominance that I need to see to beat Oliveira. There's a different jump up. We've seen it time and time again. The gap between Charles and Poirier and Gaethje exists. The gap between Gaethje and Poirier and some of these other guys exists. Arman Tsarukyan has just not proven himself like that. He's not. He's not, guys. Damir Ismagulov? Look at what Grant Dawson did to him, man. Don't even tell me that's Damir Ismagulov, if it wasn't for the Weasel glazing him and hyping him up, and the hardcore fans hyping that guy up, we wouldn't be as shocked about it. Dude, he took Damir Ismagulov to a decision. No issue with taking him to a decision. I'm not going to turn into the guy that says things like, oh, you got to finish fights in order to be good. That's not what I'm saying. It's just, it was not that dominant. Like, sure, he took his back every now and then. Damir Ismagulov is getting up to his feet, left and right, up to his feet all the time. Arman Tsarukyan wasn't doing anything special on the feet. And that's Damir Ismagulov with the same reach as Charles, just literally a quarter of the power. That ain't shit on the ground compared to Charles Oliveira either. Again, Charles Oliveira, nobody can get the better of this guy significantly on the ground. Arman's way to win this fight is getting him into half guard and camping there for 3 rounds, or TKOing him in half guard. He's not going to TKO him in half guard, though. Unless he hurts him badly on the feet first. It's only a matter of time before they're on the feet and Charles Oliveira is marching him down and gets the better of Arman in an exchange because he has the reach advantage. Arman's chin, again, it's not totally proven. He's not necessarily got a bad chin, but I think Charles, the offensive juggernaut that he is, again, just because he had a hard time hitting Islam Makhachev does not mean he ain't that offensive juggernaut that we are used to seeing. Watch his fight with Kevin Lee. Charles Oliveira is an absolute beast when it comes to his kicking game and his forward pressure. And he broke Kevin Lee and just took his neck home when he shot that single leg. Right? I think Arman Tsarukyan might get tired in this fight, dealing with a massive guy like Charles Oliveira. Huge for the lightweight division. Super strong. His takedown defense is getting a whole lot better. He was getting up to his feet when Islam Makhachev was taking him down. Islam Makhachev also could do shit to him on the ground. Better finisher than Arman. Arman's literally not had one submission in the UFC. Not that, again, it's not all about finishing potential. It's just like, I need to see a little bit more dominance before I think you're going to beat Charles. The type of people I think are going to beat Charles, maybe Khabib. With the terrifying ground and pound we saw over the best of the best. Maybe a guy like Makhachev. There's only like less than a handful of people that are beating Oliveira. I'm not fucking picking this guy. And he's not different. He ain't different, man. He ain't that guy, pal. I'm telling you the truth. He's not that guy. Charles Oliveira is knocking this motherfucker out. Okay?